Hello, my name is Kainton Munoye, and today we are going to discuss estimate activity durations. Previously, on the project time management knowledge area, we discussed estimate activity resources. Remember the outputs from estimate activity resources? We have activity resource requirements. We also have resource breakdown structure and project document updates. Today, we are going to focus on estimate activity durations. According to the Bimbo Guide 5th edition, estimate activity duration is a process of estimating the number of work periods needed to complete individual activities with estimated resources. The key benefit of this process is that it provides the amount of time each activity will take to complete, which is a major input into the developed schedule process. Estimating activity durations uses information on activity, scope of work, required resource types, estimated resource quantities, and resource calendars. Alright, let's move on. We also have that estimates of activity resources are used to approximate the number of work periods needed to complete the activity using the appropriate project and resource calendars. All data and assumptions that support duration estimating are documented for each estimate of activity duration. Let's now look at the ITTOs of estimate activity durations. We have 10 inputs: project schedule management plan, resource calendars, resource breakdown structure (RBS), activity resource requirements, activity list, activity attributes, risks register, activity cost estimates, enterprise environmental factors, and organizational process assets. The tools and techniques are expert judgment, analogous estimating, parametric estimating, 3-point estimating, group decision-making techniques, and reserve analysis. We have two outputs there for estimate activity duration, and that is activity duration estimate and project document updates. Let's now, as usual, ask ourselves the question: why do we need this input for this process? Why do we need the schedule management plan for estimate activity resources? This is because the schedule management plan defines the method used and the level of accuracy along with other criteria required to estimate activity duration, including the project's update cycle. Activity list. The activity list, we need it because it identifies the activity that will need duration estimate. Activity attributes. The attributes provide the primary data input for use in estimating activity durations required for each activity in the activity list. Another input is activity resource requirements. Remember, activity resource requirements as well as resource breakdown structure are two outputs from estimate activity resources process. We need the activity resource requirements to estimate activity durations because activity resource requirements will have an effect on the duration of the activity, since the level to which the resources assigned to the activity meets the requirement will significantly influence the duration of most activities. For example, if additional or lower skilled resources are assigned to an activity, there may be reduced efficiency or productivity due to increased communication, training, and coordination needs, leading to a longer duration estimate. Why do we need resource breakdown structure to estimate activity resources? because the resource breakdown structure provides a hierarchical structure of the identified resources by resource category and resource types. We also need the project scope statement to estimate activity resources, to estimate activity duration. This is because the assumptions and constraints from the project scope statement are considered when estimating activity durations. Example of assumptions in the project scope statement may be existing conditions, availability of information, length of reporting period, etc. We also need the risk register because risk events may impact resource selection and availability. Update the risk register included with project document updates, which is also an output of this process. Resource calendars. The resource calendars can influence the duration of project schedule activities due to the availability of specific resources, type of resources, and resources with specific attributes. For example, when staff members are assigned to an activity on a full-time basis, in general, a skilled staff member can be expected to complete a given activity in less time than a relatively less skilled staff member. And of course, we have two more inputs: enterprise environmental factors and organizational process aspects. Let's now go ahead to look at the tools and techniques for estimate activity durations. One of them is expert judgment, analogous estimating, parametric estimating, group decision making techniques, 3-point estimating, which we have either triangular distribution or the beta distribution, which is also called PERT, performance evaluation review technique, and then we have reserve analysis. Let's now take a look at some of these tools and techniques to gain a clearer understanding of how they apply. Analogous estimating is a technique for estimating the duration of costs of an activity or process or project using historical data from a similar activity or project. Analogous duration estimating is frequently used to estimate project duration when there is limited amount of detailed information about the project. Analogous estimating is generally less costly and less time-consuming than other techniques, but it is also less accurate. Parametric estimating. This is also a tool and techniques used in estimate activity duration. Parametric estimating is an estimating technique in which an algorithm is used to calculate cost or duration based on historical data and project parameters. Parametric estimating uses a statistical relationship between historical data and other variables to calculate an estimate for activity parameters such as cost, budget, and duration. So when we talk about parametric estimating, talk about calculation. Activity durations can be quantitatively determined by multiplying the quantity of work performed by labor hours per unit work. Take for instance, you have that 10 meters of laying 10 meters of cable takes 5 days. Therefore, laying 100 meters will take 50 days. This estimate has been made parametrically. Let's look at 3-point estimating. The accuracy of single-point activity duration estimates may be improved by considering estimating uncertainty and risk. This concept originated with the program evaluation and review technique. PERT uses 3 estimates to define approximate range for an activity duration. 1. The first estimate is the most likely. This is based on duration of the activity given the resources likely to be assigned, their productivity, realistic expectations of availability for the activity, dependencies on other participants, and interruptions. So we have most likely guess, meaning that you make an estimate that looks like this estimate is the most correct one. But you also make another very optimistic one, and that is activity duration based on analysis of the best case scenario for the activity. So you make an assumption hoping the best. Then you make a pessimistic one based on analysis of the worst case scenario for the activity. So how does 3-point estimating work? You bring all this together using a formula, and that formula says E is equal to O plus M plus P over 3. But take note that there are two formulas used for 3-point estimating calculation. One of them is triangular distribution, which is E. The estimate will be equivalent to the optimistic plus the most likely plus the pessimistic estimate, the sum divided by 3 gives you the estimate. Beta distribution, also called Peirce technique, has a slightly different formula that says the estimate should be O, that is the optimistic estimate, plus 4 times the most likely estimate plus the pessimistic estimate divided by 6. So it appears that the beta distribution appears to be more accurate because we give more weight to the most likely estimate. Duration estimates based on 3 points with an assumed distribution provide an expected duration and clarify the range of uncertainty around the expected duration. Let's take some exercises. Pick up your calculator and pen and a paper and let's do these exercises. The first one is, what is the expected duration estimate? If the optimistic estimate is 4 days, the most likely estimate is 7 days, and the pessimistic is 10 days. The answer is simple. 4 plus 7 plus 10 divided by 3. 4 plus 7 plus 10 equals 21. 21 divided by 3 gives us the estimate of 7 days. Now let's take the next one. What is the expected duration if O is equal to 9 days, M is 15 days, and P is equal to 25 days? Again, you use the formula and then you do the calculation. I think this answer has been gotten using the triangular distribution. So in your exams, you might expect to see a calculation like this. Remember, there are two triangular distribution formula and beta distribution formula, also called Peirce. Another tool and technique used in estimate activity duration process is group decision making techniques. Team-based approaches such as brainstorming, Delphi or nominal group techniques are useful for engaging team members to improve estimate accuracy and commitment to the emerging estimate. You remember where we encountered brainstorming or Delphi or nominal group techniques? Yes, that is when we are collecting the requirements or in the collect requirement process under the scope management knowledge area. Now, Delphi, brainstorming, and nominal group techniques are types of group creativity techniques. By involving a structured group of people who are close to the technical execution of work in the estimating process, additional information is gained and more accurate estimate is obtained. Additionally, when people are involved in the estimation process, their commitment toward meeting the resulting estimate increases. Reserve analysis. We need to pay careful attention to the topic of reserve analysis. Now, duration estimate may include contingency reserves, sometimes referred to as time reserves or buffers, into the project schedule to account for schedule uncertainty. What it means is that after making an estimate, you want to also add a reserve in case of uncertainties. And now we have two types of reserve. We have contingency reserves and management reserve. Contingency reserve are the estimated duration within the schedule baseline, which is allocated for identified risks or uncertain events that has been accepted and for which a contingent or mitigation response are developed. Contingency reserves are associated with known unknowns. What it means is you have identified a risk, you know this risk is real, it might occur, and then you plan for it. You reserve an amount of time for it. This amount of time you reserve for a risk that you know might happen is called contingency reserve, time reserve, or buffers, and it's associated with known unknowns. Now we have management reserves. Are a specified amount of the project duration withheld for management control purposes and are reserved for unforeseen work that is within the scope of the project. Now, management reserve has to do with amount of time reserved for risks that you have not identified that may just happen. Management reserves are intended to address unknown unknowns that can affect a project. The management reserve is not included in the schedule baseline, but it is part of the overall project duration requirement. So determination of contingency reserve and management reserve is known as reserve analysis. Let's now look at estimate activity resources, estimate activity duration outputs. We have we have two outputs, and that is activity duration estimate. Activity duration estimates are quantitative assessments of the likely number of time periods that are required to complete an activity. Duration estimates do not include any lags. Activity duration estimates may include some indication of a range of possible results. For example, estimate of 2 weeks plus or minus 2 days, which means from 12 days to 16 days. A range from 12 days to 16 days, which indicates that the activity will take at least 8 days and not more than 12. Then we also have project document updates. I hope this has been informative for you. I would like you to spend some time getting your head around the ITTOs for estimate activity duration. If necessary, pause this video, rewind it, and take note of these points that I've made. I hope you've learned much from this video. I'd like to thank you for viewing. I'd also like you to join me in my next process that I'm going to present, and that is develop schedule.